Welcome back to the show, everybody. Check these headlines out this morning. We got an update from Congress. Bitcoin and Tether. How about Tether and Evergrande? How about the Russian ruble backed by gold? And the U.S. losing its global reserve currency status? It's getting more real by the day. You're going to see evidence of a new flip the switch moment right now. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at Dig Perspectives at the top of the screen, and everything that we're talking about here. It's 2.169 market cap for cryptocurrency this morning. It is April 5th, 2022. Good morning, everybody. We're up just a little bit over 1% on the market cap for crypto, but Bitcoin is 46,700 plus. You're going to get some disturbing information about that this morning. 3,500 for Ethereum plus, and we see now at the number 9 spot, XRP slipping down at 82 cents here, market cap at 39.9. Cardano ahead of it at number 8 spot. Let's look at the price range really quickly here. 81 cents on the bottom and 84 cents on the top. We'll keep an eye on it today. Take a look at this. This is Glimp Pay, everybody. I love this card. I just topped up last week, and hopefully I get to top up a little more, but don't tell Mrs. Backup, right? But right here you see it is gold, and it is the alternative to the banking system, and is the gold alternative to the banking system. By the way, you can get a MasterCard debit card for your Glint account, and you can save, send, and spend your gold anywhere across the globe. Pretty amazing. I love it for hedging inflation, and I also at some point am going to take some physical delivery of that gold, because you can do that too. By the way, U.S. Mint says here from Gold Telegraph, they share from Glint, and Gold Telegraph sees strongest gold bullion demand in 23 years. Go gold. That's what I say. I'm accumulating. Link underneath the video. Let's get started right here very quickly here. This is This Week in Congress from Ron Hammond. Shout out to you, Ron. And I'm going to go quickly through this and not read everything, but we know first is Secretary Yellen testifying in front of the House Financial Services Committee on Wednesday, tomorrow. This is an annual hearing, but expect a lot of focus on Ukraine sanction evasion. Expect crypto to come up, as some Dems will ask if it's being used to evade sanctions. We come down to here. It says legislative proposal that is really tied to this annual meeting here. And it says usually find their way into a markup later. This is this way to keep the hearing focused on certain topics, but also show that it's a priority for the committee. About sanctions are no surprise, but there are a few bills that touch crypto here. So we'll keep an eye on that. Also, next is stable coins. Last week, Representative Trey and others introduced a bill to regulate stable coins around the topic of audits and reserves. This narrow bill is a great first step, and I expect more proposals to be unveiled in the coming weeks. Goes on to say here, in addition to sanctions, stablecoins continue to be the main topic of conversation in D.C. as more proposals and bills come to the surface after weeks of work. The question remains if Congress has the time to come together in a bipartisanly pass legislation. This is the question. That's why I believe there's a great chance you could see the Treasury come in with FSOC. Stablecoin legislative process is particularly unique, as there are a variety of views on how to properly regulate them, especially on Democratic side. One common theme, those engaged on the issue skew younger than their peers in Congress, for Republicans and Dems alike. Finally, he says we're seeing more committees engaged on or crypto issues, as the international political landscape shifts. Senate Foreign Relations Committee and the House Foreign Affairs Committee, say those 4 times fast, have recently started playing a larger role in studying the benefits risk of crypto. It says here 2 examples of this. HFAC chair introduced HR 7338, which would appoint a director of digital currency security at the State Department. Additionally, we see SFRC pass the ACES Act, which studies effects on crypto as legal tender in El Salvador. These efforts for Congress to study the issue before legislating, rather than unnecessarily jamming legislation through without checking with stakeholders like administration, academia, and industry, are important and a good sign of a thoughtful approach to regulation. Thank you, Ron Hammond. We'll keep you up to date on that. Now, this is a clip here that's going to take us to why all these studies and things may be taking place. This is David Morgan, and if you haven't seen the clip on Twitter, you're going to see it here in a second, but this is a different clip from the interview on Stansberry Research from Daniela Cambone, a great interview and conversation, just like always, but you're going to hear him talk about Bitcoin being tied to USD Tether, which is not breaking news to a lot of us, but also talking about Tether possibly being tied to Evergrande, which is really been talked about as China's Lehman Brothers equivalent, which is really, really concerning because we know Lehman Brothers went down in that crisis back in '08. So check this out.
And that's a metaphor and an analogy to Bitcoin. Bitcoin, I think, in the white paper started off with a great idealism. But if you look at the present day, basically a lot of the top dogs are associated with MasterCard, and they are big holders. They own most of it. So whenever you own the main body of something, you are in control. I mean, if you owned 90% of the silver market, you'd be in control of the silver market. If you owned 90% or if even 55% of the oil market, you'd be in charge of the oil market. And it's the same thing with Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of them. It depends what the ownership ratio looks like. Unfortunately, Bitcoin has been hijacked. The whales own it.
Do you feel this is correlated?
Now think about that for a second. I thought it was decentralized, they said. But we know different. And so does David Morgan here from the Morgan Report. Check it out.
To price, that the price pressure Bitcoin's been on? I mean, apart from this recent rally as we speak, is that what's behind it for you?
That is the big question. It's all about Tether, and Tether has got issues, and no one really knows what's going on with Tether. Now, we have conjectured that they may be tied to Evergrande, and if so, then some of that paper is not worth much. And so as long as Tether can print indiscriminately, they can send a Bitcoin price basically wherever they want to. But once it's discovered that Tether really is a Federal Reserve in disguise and just printing money out of thin air, if that's the case, and many believe it is, then Bitcoin's got a problem going forward.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Know what you hold. You know what you hold. And speaking of knowing what you hold, let's take a look at this because, talking about the U.S. dollar against the Russian ruble here, this is shared by Keep It Classy Chicago. It says gold-backed Russian ruble surpasses the U.S. dollar in gaining. And it basically shows the price exchange right here, which I didn't know what it was before, but I understand that the Russian ruble is gaining in strength. And that is the opposite of what the sanctions were supposed to do. So something is not working, ladies and gentlemen. That is the truth, right? Like it or lump it. That's the truth. So why would the U.S. risk losing global reserve currency status is what Daniela Cambone asked David Morgan in the same conversation, and lo and behold, he talks about XRP being mentioned. Now, you need to understand, David Morgan is not what we call a crypto guy, okay? This is an economist, macroeconomist, gold guy, silver guy, the whole, metals, the whole bit. I mean, this is a traditional, conventional investment guy right here. And this man is talking about XRP and potentially a new dollar being on the back of the XRP token. Check this out.
Why would the U.S. risk the U.S. dollar no longer being the reserve currency here?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's a question of the U.S. risking it. I think it's an eventuality. And they know it. They, meaning the top tier Bank of International Settlements, the Fed knows it. And they can only run this type of a system, a debt-based monetary system, for so long that it fails. There's 91 countries that are looking at a central bank digital currencies, and there's 9 that have implemented. China's being the lead, and China has 100 million people using their central bank digital currency currently. And the problem with it is several-fold, in my view, as a libertarian type thinker, is that you have no privacy at all. Every transaction that you do is monitored. And that being a concern, but what's more of a concern is that there's a social credit score put on top of the digital currency, which means that if you don't salute and say 3 bags full and go along with the political ideology that comes from the top down, then you could be penalized regardless of how much money is in your account. And that's the major problem that I see, is that money's always been controlled, but now it's, but with some leeway. But now there's no leeway. You can't use cash.
Okay, so the paths are leading to some form of a digital currency. So do you think it's coincidence that we're now at the exact same moment seeing executive orders and mandates come out, and in it there is talk of a coming Federal Reserve digital dollar?
No, it's par for the course as far as I am concerned. I mean, how far along they are, I'm not certain. I have looked into this fairly deeply. There is some talk of going on the back of, let's say, an XRP or some other currency that's out there now that's functioning well and has been basically tested, and then putting a CBDC on top of that. That certainly could be achieved. And if it were, it could expedite how quickly this comes to the fore.
Now, that is an enormous comment right there from somebody who is not in the crypto space. Where did David Morgan get that information? And plus, knowing that the BIS is the key hub for the central banking system for all of this innovation going to digital dollars, digital CBDCs, right? This is pretty remarkable. But listen to what he says about what will be a catalyst potentially to usher in this new financial system. Check it out.
I think before we get to this all-out digital currency, you need to implement a digital ID system, which means it's basically your DNA proves that you are you, that's your identity, and that goes into the system. And with that, you're guaranteed that you are who you say you are on the internet and all your financial transactions. And to implement that, I am thinking that there could be some type of cyber attack, which we're already being told could happen with the cyber polygon that the WEF performed a couple of times. So we could have some kind of a cyber interference from the Russians. And then all of a sudden, we all are dependent on the internet. And to make sure the internet is safe and clean and everyone is who they say they are, we're going to implement this digital ID that absolutely guarantees who you are. And that is hooked to your central bank digital currency, and basically have a top-down control system that you either participate in or you don't.
Why?
I mean, that is really remarkable right there. And look, it doesn't stop there, okay? Because what do we remember here? Remember this from Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum that he just cited? Take a listen.
We all know, but still pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack. To use the COVID-19 crisis as a timely opportunity to reflect on the lessons the cybersecurity community can draw and improve our preparedness for a potential cyber pandemic.
I have to say, it is quite disturbing to hear that, and how they predicted the pandemic and now are predicting a cyber attack. I say to you, that is disturbing. But talking about identity and having to have a digital identity first, it reminded me of Greg Kidd, formerly of Ripple, of his global ID identity ecosystem here for businesses and people. Can't make this up, ladies and gentlemen. What we're missing now is the actual cyber attack, for which we know Putin has already threatened that he would attack the American banking system because of the SWIFT sanctions. I mean, I hope we can avoid all of this, but I tell you, it does look pretty ominous headed into this before we get to any kind of blue skies, right? Then I remind you that what you're talking about when he's discussing, David Morgan is discussing losing the global reserve currency status here. I remind you that he's talking about the new digital dollar for the Fed, as asked by Danielle Cambone, being potentially, as he said, on the back of XRP, a system that's already been developed and tested, a la MoneyGram, a la XLM, MoneyGram right now, right? So, it's potential to see something like this take place and immediately take the forefront and be a leader in this digital asset revolution. Now, with that being said, if you're going to have an XRP and a digital dollar be on the back of that XRP, I want you to understand, as a CBDC, should it be a wholesale CBDC, it could, in fact, as we've discussed here in the November 2021 report from the World Bank, it could be a stable coin, as mentioned by the World Bank, which a lot of people scoff at. Well, scoff at the information I'm about to run through with you now. Two digital currencies fall into the category as a stable coin are XRP and XLM. Period. Full stop. World Bank. Take it up with them, not me. Take it up with the R3 report that came out years ago that we covered here on the channel, and all of this talk from David Morgan reminded me of this. Remember when R3 talked about the idea of a Fed coin, and they entertained the notion of it being backed by Bitcoin, and that doesn't work, as we all know. And they also entertained the notion of it being backed by XRP, as you can see right here. An alternative way to create Fed coin would be to pre-allocate the entire supply of tokens, say $100 trillion Fed coin, and this block would immediately be awarded to the central bank to be held in reserve until they are required. Ripple set the precedent for 100% pre-allocation, for which people still try to deny these days. At its inception, the entire 100 billion supply of XRP, Ripple's native token, was created outright. Much of it is retained by Ripple Labs in escrow, as we know, while the rest was auctioned off or given away. Now, as for a reduction in supply, the central bank can store surplus crypto coins in its vaults. So they would take over the escrow, right? And as it does, or have Ripple simply become a bank. And if Ripple were to become a bank, they don't have to take over the escrow. They just simply become the new Fed. Isn't it? Looking at this here, pre-allocating simplifies security requirements, as no one has the ability to issue Fed coins. So pre-allocating all of this could be how we get out of this mess with the SEC. However, it is exceedingly difficult to change supply later if demand is underestimated. A new coin, let's call it Fed Coin 2.0, would have to be issued in order to complement the exhausted supply of the physical cash Fed Coin 1.0. Right? So how does the central bank put those coins into the economy? It swaps Fed coin for notes on demand at a fixed rate. Let me show you this really quickly here. Remember when we covered this a couple of years ago? That it was Visa patent application seeks to turn fiat currency into digital blockchain versions. It says right here, credit card giant Visa has an application, and they filed it with the U.S. Patent Office on a computer system that would convert physical dollars, other fiat currencies, into digital versions, complete with denominations, serial numbers, and recorded via blockchain. The system would then remove the paper currency from circulation. Are we seeing a pattern here, ladies and gentlemen? You got the payment companies working as a catch-all bucket to collect cash, just as the banks would do for a return fixed rate, as they're saying here in the R3 report. By using a cash-in, cash-out mechanism for introducing Fed coin, a central bank ensures that the combined quantity of banknotes and Fed coin remain unaffected. Basically, it goes on, as David Andafato told him, describes it this way. Setup means that Fed coin functions just like another currency denomination. For example, the Federal Reserve were to introduce a $200 bill, it would be set at a 2-to-1 peg. So it doesn't mean that if XRP or XLM were to be a stable coin, it would be only worth $1. What he's showing you here is you would set a peg to the initial currency that already exists against the new currency that's being introduced, which could be a 2-to-1 ratio or whatever you decide to place it at. That's what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, a price set through a stable coin designation, which it highly looks like we're going to see controlled by the U.S. Treasury and others. So This is getting interesting, ladies and gentlemen. This conversation is so interesting to me because I'm 5 years into this space and this investment and looking at all the information, and we still can't seriously dismiss the idea of this possible outcome. That's going to do it for me. Hit the like and subscribe. I cannot wait to see your comments underneath this video. Remember, I never use WhatsApp, and I hardly ever get the opportunity to comment under the video because I don't want people to think that I am the scammers that you see underneath the video. We work tirelessly to try to block them, but they are bots. They continue to return. YouTube does nothing to help us get rid of the scammers underneath of those comments. So never assume it's me unless you see the white check. Right? You got to see the check by my name to know that it's me. That's going to do it for me. Check out all the links underneath the video. They're great products and services I use each and every day. I'll catch all of you on the next one.